Hey everybody, welcome to DIY with Herman James. I was calling it the rant, but doing it myself, less ranting. And on today's episode, we're doing a brake job on a 2012 Camry. Alright everyone, as I said, coming into this episode, we're doing a brake job on a 2012 Camry. It's my wife's Camry. Now, we've taken it in to have it looked at and have the oil change and things like that. I typically can do it myself, but truthfully, I didn't feel like doing it. And the cost for them to do it while it's cold outside, I know it's not snowing here in Northern California, but when it's rainy and cold, I don't feel like going underneath cars and doing it. And my garage is big enough to fit the Datsun in it, and I could put other cars in here as well. I just don't like playing, car roulette all the time. So we had them do it. They took a look at the brakes, and as I could already feel, the rotors need to be turned and the pads need to be replaced. Not too extensive of a job to have done. It can be done pretty quickly. I mean, it all depends on your tools and your experience and how it goes with that, whether the rotors are old and rusted on, and if the brakes and calipers are all working perfectly, which these are. For the Camry out here, like I said, 2012, it's been inspected, everything's perfectly fine. So all I'm going to do is take the pads off, replace the pads, take the rotors off, replace the rotors, and put it back together, and it should be good to go. Now, before we go and start anything with the vehicle, I like to get my tools in order and things I need for the job to get done. Truthfully, you don't need much. You can use basic hand tools, so a ratchet would be perfectly fine for it, and as long as you have the right actual socket for it, it'll work perfectly fine. Now, since I have some other tools for it and I've accumulated them over the years, I'm going to use them, but I also have tons of other tools I can use for any of it. So let's take a look at what I've got for this one. So right here we're looking at the actual brakes and rotors. So rotors, brake pads, they're distinguished on which ones they are. Usually it's going to be the larger for the front, smaller for the back, and there's different diameters of ones down here. Now I'm also going to be using my impact gun that I have here. I use an old coat hanger so I can hang the calipers up on top of the springs to hold them in there so I don't have any issues with the actual lines and kinking of the brake fluid. Tire chocks, wheel chocks, however you want to call them, I use those as well to make sure the car is not going to roll on me. And then I also will use these guys here. This is going to be compressing the actual brakes themselves so that the pistons will pull in. This is a 2-piston compressor for it, which works out fine. Now, I've also used other means of doing things, so C-clamps and a small piece of wood, anything in there, or C-clamps to push in a single piston caliper. Those work out perfectly fine as well if you don't have the gun like I have over here. Paying attention to this stuff. This is what you guys saw already for the lights that we've got in here that are all done, and this is for air compressor on here, not for today's video. So if it's windy out here, forgive me. Hopefully the mic will cut some of this out. What we're going to work on doing now is jacking the car up. Obviously you're going to need a jack and some jack stands to hold it up. You should be able to know where the jack needs to be placed. If not, YouTube has tons of videos of where the frame rail is to put on there. Don't put on the pinch welds, it'll smash things down. Don't put it on the actual body of the car, it's gonna mess up as well. But as you'll see here, we've got the wheel chocks put into places for where they need to be done, and the jack isn't being used yet, but I'm going to jack up this area first to do this tire. I typically will do one side and then the other just to make it easier on myself, and I'll take this off and throw it underneath the car to make sure if anything comes down, that'll save it. That's the thought process, at least. Let's get started. So now I've got the jack where I want it to be on the frame here. So you'll be able to kind of see where it's at. Sorry, it's a little dark under there. So what we're gonna do now is loosen these lugs while there's tension on the ground, so it holds the tire steady. These are easily able to be backed off, and once it's up in the air a little bit, we'll pull them completely off. So now, after some trial and error, the guys that did the tire rotation put the lug nuts on so tight I couldn't get them off without a breaker bar, and that's with me using an impact wrench. So this is the series of tools I've had to go through. This is my breaker bar. These are ratchets I was using. Impact drill could not even move them. But now you'll see that I've got just enough room here to get the wheel off. I don't need to lift it too high. So what I'm going to do is take the rest of these lugs off, take the wheel off, slide it right under here. As you can see, the wheel chocks are still back there. And then we'll work on this rotor pads, and we'll see what we get to. Be right back. Okay, so now we've got the sun setting on me, but you can see the tire's now off. So what we're gonna be looking at here is coming back through here to pull off the bolts right through here so that we can pull this entire piece off and hang this on the spring right here, which is why we have that coat hanger to loop onto here and hang on here. You don't want to leave it hanging and have any issue with potentially having kinks or breaks in these lines for your brake fluid. Alright, so it took some persuasion to get it, but I got the bolts off that I'm looking to get off right now. So what I did was, for these back here 17 millimeters, and I was able to get them off with the breaker bar. I also used this guy kind of as a pry bar to get them out, and what really worked the best was just a closed end wrench to be able to pry them off and be able to get them to work perfectly fine. Once they were off, it was easy for me to just use the Milwaukee guy here to get them out the rest of the way. The reason I'm going this way first is I'm working my way backwards. So I'm going to take off the rotor here, put a new rotor on there, and then work with popping this piece off and replacing these pads. Working little by little, we'll get there. Well, that rotor wasn't fun to get off. I ended up having to use some just PB Buster or whatever you can get that's going to take off rust and corroded nails, screws, bolts, and for this instance, rotors. You'll see here the rotor was actually fused because of the rust. It was stuck on there. You can see that there's a little bit of glue for here for when the actual lug nuts go on to hold them onto the studs. These are put in off the back here for some Loctite to make sure that these posts don't come out, which is fine, and that had no problem. It was quite literally just here. So what I'll do is I'll put some anti-seize on the actual rotors themselves to give me a little bit better play on them. And that's what we've got here. They're front rotors, gloves, whatever you need to wear for these, because you're not supposed to be touching them with your hands. The fluids and oils on your hands are bad for the rotors. So I actually have some brake clean that I'll spray on there to make sure that they're perfect for when I reassemble everything and put the calipers and everything back on. So for now, let's get to putting this back on. due to some trial and error, we got it done. You can see how this is put back on. Now this tire itself is only hand tightened with the Milwaukee so that it'll hold things on there. I'm going to torque it down to spec after I get it down and push out the brake fluid. As you can see here, the reservoir filled up due to it being compressed on that caliper. So because of that, that's why you open it up. You don't have things popping out for it. So I'm going to do the remainder of these and I'll get right back to you. Well, the Camry was complete. I was able to do the front and rear brakes, and as you can see in the pictures and the slides from the work being done, and if you saw it on social media, the rear brakes did not have to be done. They were going to charge us $425 to do a full brake job on this car when only the front rotors and calipers needed to be changed. Excuse me, pads for the calipers need to be changed. The rears are perfectly fine. There is over 50%, almost 70% life on those pads, and the rotors were perfectly fine. So now I've done all of it. Everything is going to be working great. There was issues for me on the rear because the rear is drum e-brakes, which I'm not familiar with. So that was new for me. That caused me a little bit of a heartache. So if you guys haven't seen it, I'll link some videos down below that I YouTubed to see how to adjust them and what to expect. Just know when you change the brakes on these Camrys that you have to take the e-brake off if you're going to change the rears out, because it's very hard to do it with them on, and it's actually not good for the e-brake itself. But other than that, everything worked out very well. I'm gonna go take everything to my Firestone dealership because those guys do alignments for me. Anytime I mess with any of the wheels, I want to make sure I get an alignment done. It's not necessary and it probably has no effect on things, but I pay for lifetime alignment anyway, so why not get everything I can out of it. As you can see on my face, I've been touching myself a lot with the gloves on. I am covered in every bit of whatever because I hugged the wheels to put them back on, but it's done. The brake job is done. We saved over $300 by doing it ourselves. You can do it too. Do as we're all doing and YouTube things for the step-by-steps of how it's gonna get done. And check the specs on your vehicle. Make sure you get the torque specs down and everything done to the torque proper amounts of things. I've done it long enough where I know the general idea of what I'm doing, but I'm no mechanic. I'm a weekend warrior, so I know what I can and can't do, should and shouldn't do, and that's what it is. Don't be afraid to attempt doing it. Have fun with doing it and know that you're saving yourself tons of money by doing it yourself. Maybe it takes you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times as long. I started today at around 4 o'clock and it's 10:30 now. Yeah, it's a long time. And I could have taken it to a shop and they would have had it done hours ago, or hours shorter than what I'm doing. But it would cost me a ton more money. And I wouldn't have been able to know what I know now about the car that I didn't know before I did the brakes. So make sure you do the same thing. And if you want to see more videos like this, leave a comment below. Tell me what you're looking to see, what you want to have done. Tell me what you thought of this video. Don't forget to subscribe and share the video around. The more you subscribe and like the video, the better it is for me and helps me get these out to you guys and helps me fund the activities I'm doing. This guy's coming up soon. There's more on the hearse that you guys saw behind the Camry. The Subi's always getting worked on. I'm always doing projects, whether it is automotive or home DIY upgrades and things like that. So leave comments below of what you thought and let me know. I'll be interacting with you as much as I can. Love to have you guys on here. Thanks for tuning in. I can't wait to be in your eyes and ears next time. Thanks.